I was summoned into my boss's office, a place that normally radiated authority and composure. But that day, the air felt heavy, thick with tension. Behind his massive oak desk sat Adrian Miller, my employer, my mentor. His usual calm was fractured. His fingers were laced too tightly, his sharp gaze betraying a vulnerability I had never seen in him before. With a weary sigh, he gestured for me to sit. "I think of you as a brother," he began, his Swiss accent more pronounced than usual, each word deliberate, weighted. "What I'm about to say will wound you. Promise me you won't act rashly." A knot tightened in my stomach. I nodded, though I had no idea what was coming. Adrian leaned forward, his voice falling to a whisper. "Your wife, Julia, she's been having an affair with my son, Eric." The word struck like a hammer, shattering my world in an instant. I just stared, trying to process the enormity of it. His voice, heavy with regret, carried on. "They're on their honeymoon now, celebrating their betrayal." I couldn't speak. My mind was a storm. Adrian saw it, recognized the danger brewing in me. "Luca," he said firmly, "I know your history. I know your temper. I beg you, don't do something you can't undo. But if you want justice, I have a plan. It's precise. It's flawless. Just promise me one thing. My son must not come to harm." I nodded slowly, fury simmering beneath my skin. His calculated calm clashed with the fire raging inside me. I walked out his office in a haze, his words echoing as Julia's betrayal sank deeper. She had told me she needed space, that she was leaving for a work trip in the south of France. But there had never been a trip, only Eric. Back in my apartment, I sat surrounded by relics of a life that suddenly felt like a cruel farce. Photos, souvenirs, memories, all mocking me. My first instinct was to explode, to hunt them down and demand answers. But Adrian's warning replayed in my mind. Don't act rashly. He promised a plan. The next day, I returned to his office, barely containing my rage. "You said you had a plan." I muttered. He nodded. "This isn't about violence, Luca. It's about strategy." Adrian laid it out. Eric, the spoiled black sheep of the family, had coasted through life on entitlement and money. Adrian wanted to teach him a lesson. I wanted retribution. Together, we crafted something both ruthless and precise. With a single command, Adrian severed Eric's lifeline. Credit cards declined. Access to family funds gone. The lavish honeymoon collapsed overnight. Unpaid hotel bills, awkward confrontations with staff, humiliation for both Eric and Julia. But it didn't stop there. Adrian had a stash of compromising photos. Eric at wild parties with other women, old but potent enough to sow doubt. An anonymous email delivered them straight to Julia. The cracks formed quickly. When they returned to London, the unraveling only deepened. Eric, cut off and desperate, was left to face how cruel the world could be without his father's wealth. Adrian made sure doors stayed closed, leaving Eric with no path back to respectability. Julia, dazzled at first by Eric's charm, began to see him clearly, a man useless without money, and I tightened the screws. Julia's favorite boutique mysteriously dropped her account. Friends began distancing themselves. Small inconveniences multiplied, and the fantasy they had built together collapsed under its own weight. Months passed. Their relationship, born of deceit, began tearing apart. The final act came at Adrian's grand gala at the Waldorf. The elite glittered in gowns and tuxedos. Eric saw it as his chance to claw back reputation. Julia, draped in a gown she could barely afford, was determined to maintain appearances. I was there too, blending into crowd, not for petty satisfaction, but to watch their empire of lies collapse. And collapse it did. Whispers filled the ballroom. Eric's downfall was too delicious a scandal. A journalist cornered him with sharp questions about his finances. Under pressure, Eric cracked. Julia tried to smooth things over, but only worsened his humiliation. By the night's end, their facade was in ruins. Julia stormed out, her gown unable to mask her defeat. Eric, once arrogant, now broken, was left alone, drowning in the wreckage of his choices. From the shadows, I felt no urge for further revenge. True satisfaction wasn't in destruction. It was in forcing them to live with the chaos they had created. Suddenly, Eric's voice rang out across the grand staircase, cutting through the chatter. "I don't need your help." His words echoed, silence in the room. All eyes turned. "You're the problem," he spat at Julia, his rage raw. "You think you're some trophy wife, living off me like a parasite. You're nothing." Gasps swept through the crowd. Julia trembled, fighting to hold her composure. But Eric pressed on, venom lacing every word. "You're the reason I'm in this mess." Adrian, ever the host, intervened. With a firm hand on his son's shoulder, he cut him off. "That's enough." His calm authority silenced even Eric. Guiding him aside, Adrian delivered the blow. "You've shamed yourself enough tonight. It's time to face reality. You've spent your life blaming others, shifting responsibility. That ends now." Eric's face burned red, his bravado crumbling. "You don't understand," he snapped. "I was trying to make it on my own." Adrian's response was razor sharp. "You don't try, Eric. You used Julia. You used Luca. And now you're paying for it." The words crushed him. His arrogance dissolved, leaving him small, exposed. Without another word, he stormed out, silence trailing in his wake. Julia hesitated, her mask cracking further before she finally followed, the guest's judgment heavy on her back. In the weeks that followed, their downfall was complete. Eric, stripped of wealth and opportunity, wound up in a shabby apartment, forced to face the emptiness of his choices. Julia, abandoned by privilege, could no longer sustain her lifestyle. Her social image was destroyed, her circle cold and distant. She took a job for the first time in years, humbled by necessity. One afternoon, my phone buzzed. Julia's trembling voice filled the line. "Luca, can we talk?" "Please." "I need to explain." Against better judgment, I agreed. We met at a cafe. She arrived changed, subdued, fragile. Gone was the polished woman I once knew. "I made a mistake," she admitted softly, tears in her eyes. "I thought Eric was the answer. I thought he could give me the life I deserved. But I was wrong. So wrong." She poured out regrets, apologies, pain. I listened quietly. The rage I once carried had burned itself out, leaving only a steady detachment. When she finished, I spoke evenly. "Julia, I don't hate you, but it's time for you to move on, because I already have. We can't change the past, only learn from it." She nodded, wiping tears, and for the first time, I saw a genuine understanding in her eyes. The months that followed brought me a peace I hadn't expected. I threw myself into my work, rediscovered joy in life's smaller moments. Quiet evenings, laughter with friends, the satisfaction of rebuilding. Eventually, I met someone new. Sophia, kind and steady, who valued loyalty above all. Adrian and I remained close, bonded by what we had endured. Even Eric, in time, clawed back some redemption, working at a modest startup, finally learning the weight of responsibility. Julia, too, rebuilt, humbled and reshaped by consequence. One evening, I stood on the terrace of my new home, watching the city bathe in golden light as the sun sank low. For the first time in years, peace settled over me. Life had broken me down and nothing, but it had also rebuilt me stronger, wiser. I realized then, true strength isn't clinging to anger or chasing revenge. It's rising above, reclaiming your worth, and building a life so rich that those who betrayed you can only watch from the sidelines. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate triumph.